Hello and welcome everyone to our Fantasy Grounds Unity Saturday stream. This is our map and image creation. And I'm Josh, and this is where we go over all of our art-related news as well as demonstrations of the built-in map and image creation system inside of Fantasy Grounds Unity. So thanks everyone for joining me today. We have been going through some of the new art packs that are going to be released, one that's going to be released this month. In addition to that, we last time we started making some new maps. So we made one with the new art package that'll be coming out this month, which is our countryside. And then we started making this wonderful nightclub scene. We're going to continue in this today. And we're going to finish this all up and hopefully maybe get into making some other stuff as well. Also, if you guys have any questions or if there's anything that I do that you need further explanation on, please just throw it into chat. I'm more than happy to experiment or to go down any sort of rabbit hole that we might want to, or explaining all of these features. So I hope everyone's having a great week. I'm excited to get back into this one. The first thing that I'm going to do before we go too much further is I'm going to turn off the lights um, while we continue to make this stuff. We'll turn off this animation stuff that we have in the middle here as well as this. So we can kind of do all of that stuff. You can see we have our lights on our shadow layer. So I want to keep that layer on. I'm just going to turn off our lighting system here. So this is our basic element that we've created. I think it looks pretty good. And we got lots of neat little elements in here, this kind of rather industrial nightclub area that we're going to create. So we'll be putting in all of our finishing touches. Last week we made some graffiti elements. You can barely hear the bass. And so yeah, we can kind of get into this. The first thing that I'm going to do today is I actually want to jump in and I'm gonna redo our little table up here. I think we can do a little bit better of a job than what we have now. So I'm just gonna remove this and these lines. And then we have these elements as well. And what I actually did, I was thinking about this a little bit more, and I think that we can do this a lot better. So, and actually kind of go into some of the new features that we have here, especially in using our export functionality to create pretty much any image that we want to. So what I actually did is I looked up, and let's get into our assets over here. So in a campaign, so I actually looked up what a DJ element might look like. And so I'm going to actually recreate this and build a new one from scratch. We can kind of build up all of these areas, and we can start to build some of the other elements we might want as well, right? Like speakers and any of those elements that we might want to like have in such an environment. And not all the time are we going to have available anything that we want in order to kind of just throw in here, but we have the ability to make whatever we want. And I think that this is a really good opportunity for us to kind of put all of that stuff together and see how it all comes full circle around. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to grab and I'm going to drag and drop this in here as a reference, right? So we have some particular kind of elements in here. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to build out all of these little pieces individually, like a knob, for example, and then I'm going to save that, and then I can place that around. And so what we see here is we just have kind of like this black rectangle, and built on top of that are all of these different little elements. And so we're going to go through this and kind of build that out today. And I think I have a pretty good idea about how I'm going to come up with some of these elements here. So let's kind of get right into it here, right? So the first thing that we're going to do is I'm going to build like a little knob, and this is going to be pretty easy to do. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make it so that we kind of create this whole little area here. Now we can either build that just from our painting tools here, something like this, right? So I'm going to turn the stroke off. I'm going to go over to our fill. We're going to make that a fill element here. And we can come in, we can make that black. And then what I can do, and I'm actually going to make this a lot larger than I need it because I can shrink this down. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to make sure that I'm in my rectangle tool here. And we want to make a nice rectangle, right? Something like this. And this is going to be this entire element, kind of like right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to build on top of that some of these other elements here. So I think what I'm going to do is I don't want this to be like solid black. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to lighten it to a little bit of a darker kind of gray. And this is one of the advantages that we have when we're using these painting tools is that we can come in here and readjust this after the fact. And then I can come in and let's go into our ellipse tool. And so we want to make sure that we do like these kind of rounded elements here. Now I'm not going to do this completely exactly, but I am going to add in some of this little bit of a shadow and a little bit of light on the top and whatnot. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to switch back over and I'm going to turn my stroke on because I do want to have a stroke on this. And I'm going to grab this and I'm going to lighten this up a little bit. So let's go maybe to something like, let's do like 25 across. And we can change this after as well, but I just want to have a little bit of separation here. And I'm going to make the element a little bit smaller. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to hold down Shift, which is going to make sure that I maintain an exact circle. And I'm also going to hold down Alt, so that's going to be coming out from the middle. And if I wanted to, I could also hold down Control, which is going to snap this to specific sizes. And I think that that's what I want. We want to keep it like this size. Now, the reason why I want to have this fill in here is because now I can use this element in a few different ways here, right? So I can match up to these points. So if I come in here and you see that we have all of these points around, now I can kind of do the same kind of thing when I want to add in these other elements, right? The next thing that I'm going to do is switch back over. We can probably turn off, no, we want to make sure we have our fill, but we'll turn off our stroke for this. And, or actually, you know what, let's keep the stroke on. And then here, we're going to make this white. Because we have this nice little white line that kind of comes up out of the top here. And so I'm just going to grab something like this, right? So we're creating this little knob element that we're going to be using. Now we're going to add in some of the other elements to it that are going to give it a little bit of shape, right? So if we come in here, you can see like we could move this out of the way, and we have this nice little knob here. But I'm going to build this so that it's going to be specific for these kinds of things here, right? So, and the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to grab, we're going to go back into our circle template here, and I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to use this as my fill. And we can switch back over, and we're going to turn off our stroke now. And again, I'm going to hold down Control, Shift, and Alt at the same time. And I'm going to snap out a section in here. Now you're not going to really see it until we move it into the right area here. But let's make sure that we do this correctly here. I'm actually going to do it over here. We just want so I can see it a little bit better. And there it is. And you see, I'm using it. I'm going to be using it to create. And you're going to kind of see, let's snap this right into place, something like that. And now what I can actually do is kind of bring this around, and you can see now this is exactly what we want to kind of create here. We're going to be building these little elements. And if we look back over at here, you can see we have this little bit of a highlight on either side there. We might even want to come in here and move it up a little to get some nice kind of elements. And then what I can actually do, let's go into our stamp element here, and we can grab this little guy again, drop this in here, and I'm going to make this black, and we can lower down its opacity a little bit. And we want to do a little bit on this side over here. I'm going to actually make this a bit oblong. And do a little, just a little edge right here. I think what we can actually do is if we go in here, we can actually change this a little bit more. We'll get a little bit more, maybe make it something like this. Now we have some of these other elements around like this, right? So we can add that in as well. So if we want to come back over into here, let's switch back over to a color element like this. We don't want to fill actually. We just want to do our stroke, and we're going to make this white. And so I'm going to make some of these like rounded elements here. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hold down Control and Alt again, and I don't want to do a square. So let's come back in here and do this. I think we'll do like that. And I can come in here and we can delete these elements. And I think we'll just bring this one somewhere around the same size. You see, we'll do like these kind of like half circles here. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now, if we wanted to, we could also come back up in here and let's say, and I'll make this a little bit transparent here. And we might want to, if we wanted to kind of like simulate some of this writing or whatnot, we could kind of just do some like squiggles along here. But we can come in and we could break this apart a little bit. Yeah, I think that'll work pretty well. But I think it'll actually, we can just kind of remove this stuff. I don't think that we necessarily need to have something like that in there. Great. Now the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna delete this. We want to make sure that we don't have any other elements in here that we're gonna export with our export element, right? And so we go to export, and we're gonna make sure that it's a PNG file, and I'm just gonna call this knob. And boom, we've exported that. Now this is going to be a lot bigger than what we need, but that's okay because we're going to be shrinking this down in the creation process. And as we begin to build all of these different elements together, we can start to kind of create a whole group of stuff that we're going to be using maybe in lots of different areas, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this back in. So I have my reference once again, move it over here. And so we have our knob created. Now we're going to make all of these different little elements and we're going to export them. And then we're going to combine them together to create this whole image. And then we'll export that. So we'll have individual components. And so we'll be able to use that in the future if we ever need to make another console or anything along those lines. And right now I'm just using pretty much the basic built-in features here. The only thing that I'm using in addition to that is this little this rounded element here. That's the only other thing that I'm kind of doing. So we're really like dialing in to the whole creation process here and how powerful this really is, right? And now when we refresh this, you can see that we're going to have our knob in here, which is right here. We just created that. We can kind of bring that in and place that around, right? So The next thing that we're going to do is let's come down to this painting layer and we'll delete that. We don't need that anymore. So the next element, let's create one of these like these slide elements, right? So we're going to go back into our painting tab. Let's bring this back to uh, black. So we can, if we need that, and let's switch back over and we want to go back into our fill, and this is going to be black as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this element first, right? And again, we're going to make this larger than we need. We should probably put down a background first. So let's switch back over to our stroke and we'll bring that out. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is I want to make sure that yeah, we'll make it maybe like this big. I want to make sure that all of these different elements that we're kind of building, right, are just kind of like snap into place. We can just hold control while we're building whatever it is that we're building and kind of build it out really quickly. So again, let's come over into here, and then we're going to make this lighter, similar to that same color that we have over there. And then we can come back into our rectangle mode here. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the little slot down here in the middle. So I'm just going to do something like this. And then we will switch back over. Let's turn our stroke on and we'll do this. And then we're going to build the little knob here at the top. And we can do all of these little like white elements as well. So now let's switch this over and we can make this white. And I'm going to make it a little bit on the inside here. And then here, what I'm actually going to do is switch over and turn our stroke off. And then on this particular section here, what we can do is I'm actually just going to do one side and we'll make a new painting layer. And we'll do like a larger one down here. And then I'm just going to duplicate it and move it over, right? And I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. We can come back in and move some of this stuff over. We don't need to do too many of these, but I think I'm going to make these a bit smaller. And we'll try to even these things out a little bit more. And we can just double click on any of these and move them around. Makes it super simple. And now let's duplicate this. And I'm going to hold down Control so it doesn't snap to the grid. Move it over to something like that. We might want to, let's see, that needs to move over a little bit. So if you hold down Control, it depends on if you have it set to snap to grid or not, but holding down Control will do the opposite. And using your arrow keys, you can move it like one pixel at a time. Actually, you know what? Let's flip it so that all of those edges are Cool. Back into our stamp tool here, and now we're going to do the same kind of thing as we did before, but I think I'll just do it with like stamping this element here. So let's make this a bit bigger, and I'm lower down the opacity a little bit. Let's do the shine first. So I'm going to bring this up to white. And let's squash this down a little bit more. So maybe something like this. We'll do a little bit back here as well. Might even do a little one on this edge. And what we can do is lower down the opacity a bit more. And now we're going to bring it down to black. Yeah. And let's rotate this and make it a bit bigger. Let's make this like 2. And then we can do a little bit of shadow along this edge here. I'm actually going to do one kind of like a little bit along this to make it feel a little bit more indented. I think we'll bring this to a little bit more roundedness, and then I'm going to do a little bit more like gradient that kind of comes down. Perfect. Now again, what we want to do is we want to delete that, and we have this little slider that we have now. And now let's export this. Make sure we pick PNG. You're not going to see this when it pops up because I'm only specifically streaming Fantasy Grounds, but you just get a little pop-up window here. And we'll call this, what is this, like slider? Perfect. Now when we come in here and we update, you can see we've created this, and then we're going to do that from. Now we can grab all of these elements. We can delete that. We don't need these anymore. And again, I'm going to bring this in. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create this like turntable. Now we could actually go through and create all of these different buttons, but a lot of it we can kind of do in the creation process. So I just want to do ones that I'm going to be doing over and over again. So where we have these sliders, like 4 of them, and then we have a bunch of different knobs. This way we can just grab that image and create it. So we're just saving ourselves a little bit of hassle, right? Oh yeah, you could totally do that. Mm-hmm. Yep, you could certainly could do that. If you wanted to be completely exact, you could use the subtraction fill to cut out all of those different elements. You're absolutely right. So the next thing we're going to do, let's create a new painting layer, is we're going to do these like turntable elements. And I have an idea about how we can do some of this kind of stuff as well. So we're going to switch over to here, and let's make that black or nearly black. We can switch over. I'm going to turn the stroke on here because we're going to do this element right here. So again, I'm going to make this quite a bit larger than it needs to be, and I'm going to hold down Control so it snaps into place. And then I'm going to come over into here again. I'm going to make this a bit lighter. And we can switch back over now. Now let's make this white. We're going to do this like inner kind of section here. And again, we can hold down all of our buttons and kind of pull this out. As you can see, we're duplicating this pretty easily here. Now the next thing, all we need to do is some of this stuff. So this is where we're going to deviate from using these things, and I'm actually going to go into the regional map pack. And in here we have some brushes, and these are kind of set up, as you can see, to do like borders and whatnot. But I think what we can actually do here, now let's turn off our fill, and we'll grab one of these, maybe something like this one. I think we'll do one that's a little bit more. We could probably do something like this. And we're just going to drag and drop that right in there. You can see, just like that. Now, what I'm actually doing, and this is how this is going to kind of work here, and this is what I'm anticipating, is we're not going to, we're going to turn off our aspect lock ratio. And we're going to make this image a lot squatter so that it's going to kind of mimic some of that stuff. And so what all we have to do is, well, we can keep this the same height if we want to, but let's make this, well, actually, let's just make this like that, maybe even like that. And then we can make this a little bit larger. You can see we're kind of duplicating that a little bit here. And again, what we can do is come right into the middle here, Control, Shift, and Alt. And you can see we're starting to get that little bit of a feel, as you can see, as we move out here. We might even want to make this a little bit shorter here. Maybe we'll do like this. I think it's pretty rounded when it kind of does that, so we'll just stay with that one. I think that one's going to be okay. And if we want to, we can also come in and we can build some of these shapes if we want. So let's come in here, and now let's switch back over to our fill element. Now, one of the things is we can use our line tool here, and if we snap to the grid, we can snap to right here, right? And again, we can kind of create this shape if we want to. If we want to snap to the grid, we can just snap to here and here, like this, as you can see. And then we can start to build this other element on the inside here. And we can kind of grab this and move it over slightly if we want to. Let's match this up a little bit more. If we want to be a little bit more of a perfectionist about it. And then I can make this this kind of shape here. So again, I can snap to the grid and we can move it out here. Maybe like here. Whoop. See, something like that. And then if we want to, any of these elements, right, we can kind of pull it back in. Maybe we do this. And I think we can move it up a little bit. Yeah, that's pretty good. Now again, let's turn this off. And now we have our element over here. So let's export it. And we go to PNG, and then we'll call this turntable. And again, let's go back up into our campaign folder here, and we'll make sure that we refresh our assets. And so here we're starting to get all of these different elements here. So let's delete that painting layer. Again, I'm going to grab this out. So we're going to use this. And I think that's all of the elements that we have to kind of pre-make. Everything else, if we want to use or do something, we should be able to do it pretty easily in here, right? So I want to maintain using this on the grid system, and I'm also going to maintain making this a bit larger. Now, the reason why we do that is because you can reduce the size of an image much easier than you can increase the size of an image, right? So working on these things and using all of the different grid system, now you can certainly just change the size of the grid and work within particular bounds. But this is a really good and easy way for to quickly kind of create this stuff. So let's go into our painting tab. We'll turn off our stroke. We'll turn on our fill. And I'm just gonna make sure that I have rectangle selected. And we're just going to pull out a shape, something like this, right? Now we can adjust this after the fact. But the next thing I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it like this for right now, I think. Let's go into our stamp. Now we can start to grab some of these things. I'm going to actually grab these larger elements first, and we can kind of make these a little bit smaller, or whatever size that we think is going to be appropriate here. And then see, I'm holding down Control, and I can kind of snap this into place so I get it pretty even here. Right, and if I want to come back into here, I can actually increase make this a little bit lighter so that we a little get more of this stuff that's kind of coming out. And you see how easily we can begin to reproduce this. And if I wanted to, like on this stuff, right, well, I can actually change the beveling and whatnot and put a stroke on this and make this a little bit more rounded on my corners. But I can also come in and I can do that pretty easily as well, just by deleting sections of this. So always lots of different ways that we can interact with the system. The next thing, let's do some of these elements. And so let's come in here, right? And again, we're going to shrink this down. And we can snap this in. Probably, let's actually, you know what? Let's make this too high and too wide. Nope, that's a little bit too wide. Let's make it one wide. Yep. And we'll snap it like right here. And then we're going to do some on the edges. Then we have some kind of ones right there, but I think that we'll just add in some different little elements in there. And we could do this in different stages as well, right? We can create all this different stuff. So, but you can kind of see how this is going to work for us, right? So now we can come in here and we can go boom. We can do this. I think what we can do, and we can always come in and we can grab this stuff. Let's move it down to maybe something like this. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into my rectangle, and now we have fills again. Let's make this one, well, we can put it down first, but we want to kind of do this area over here. And again, I'm going to snap to the grid. I'm going to move it after the fact, but we come in here and make this quite a bit lighter. And I think let's move these out a little bit as well. Let's move them like over to here so we have a little bit more space. Now we can come back into here. Let's turn our fill off and turn our stroke on. We're going to do some of these like gray elements around here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to grab my color picker and I'm going to match it to that color. Let's make it quite a bit smaller. And we can do it from like here. And we can build some of these areas around, right? We can come in and do it this way. So we could hold down and we can kind of build like this. Let's do our color fill again, and here we're gonna match this. We can do one up here at the top. We'll move this up, get a little bit more narrow, or not quite like that. Yeah, very cool. Now we can add in some of these other little like line areas and whatnot. We'll do some of these colored squares in the middle here, uh, but we'll keep this fairly simple. This is just a little thing that we're kind of building here, right? So I think we'll do something like this. And let's bring this back to black. And then we'll do a rectangle. And we'll do like this element up here. Now all we have to do, and this is the really easy kind of way that we can do this, we can grab this color picker and we could grab like this color, for example. Hit OK. Come down here and we can just let's do it something like that. We'll do like a quarter here. We might even want to keep them in something like that, like maybe there, and then we could grab these and maybe move them up to like there. Yeah, I think that'll work pretty well. Because what we can do is we can just grab this, come over here, uh, cancel, move over here. We'll grab like this color. And then we'll jump right to the green one. We don't have to overcomplicate it too much. But you see how I'm using the grid system to kind of create a pretty reasonable facsimile of this. It doesn't have to be exact for sure. Now let's grab this color. And then we'll jump over to the purple one. Violet. And then we'll do this last one over here. Yeah, fairly cool, huh? Now I think all we're going to do, let's do a couple of these on the side over here. So we can do that pretty easily. We can do it here. I'm actually going to, let's make this black again. And let's switch over and turn our stroke on, but we're going to make this black as well. We're going to do, let's do like rounded elements. So it's going to be a little bit more rounded. And I'm going to make this really small. And we can come in here and grab all of these and just kind of move them over. Very cool. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do another painting layer. Let's do it on top. And again, we're going to go back into our rectangle here. And let's keep that stroke on and let's move over to our fill. We're going to drop this guy in here. And I'm going to hold down control and we're going to snap to this. And you can see this is what we're going to use to kind of do some of this like edge kind of stuff. And we can make this a lot bigger. I think we'll do maybe something like that. And I'm going to actually like lower down the opacity here. Let's make it a little bit bigger, in fact, so that we have a little bit more like this going on. And then I'm going to hold down A and just lower down that opacity some. So we just get a little bit of that variation. You see that's going to cause a lot of that for us. And then I'm going to do another one. Hold down Control and snap this in. This time we're going to make this one darker, right? Again, we're going to make it really large. And we'll do one like down here. Maybe something like this. And again, we're going to lower down that opacity some. Let's come back in here and we'll go back into our fill. We're going to do a couple of things here. I think will be pretty easy to do. So let's just draw out a couple of these. Fill in this element in the middle here a little bit. And let's come back into here. I'm going to grab, let's go it this way. And we're going to make this like white. Darken that up a little bit. Now we can go into our stamp tool over here. And let's grab this guy. Drop this in here. I'm going to make this a bit darker. And we're going to lower down that opacity. Make one of these like oblonged, something like this. And we'll do some brief little shadows of this, like that. And I'm actually going to do some on these two because these are supposed to be like little like buttons. And you can see how easy it is to build this stuff inside of Fantasy Grounds without ever needing any sort of external program. Like you can just do all of this stuff right inside of here. It's amazing. And using the grid system, especially if you don't have that artistic kind of hand for drawing or that creation process, this will alleviate. You can see how easily we can reproduce a lot of this kind of stuff. Now this is going to be a lot better for our other map, right? So what we can now do is we're going to delete that. And here we have this thing. Now we're going to go to our export. And you're not going to see this, but I get a little pop-up. I can select JPEG or PNG. And we'll call this a DJ table. And we've exported that now. So now when we refresh over here, we're going to have it on our first page here, I think. Here it is. And you can see that those look pretty good. That's a pretty good representation there with not a whole lot of work there, right? It's taken us a very short amount of time. We've created some other elements that we can now use in lots of different ways. So now what we can actually do is we can come in here and we can start to build this. Yeah, challenge accepted and accomplished. So here we have, I think it's this is where we had it before, and then we have this layer where we can kind of put some stuff underneath. So why don't we just grab this guy? We can just do something like this. Boom. You can see it's going to be a lot bigger than we need, but here we're going to make it smaller, and we can drop it right in here. And look at how nice and clean this image looks, right? And we can snap it to the grid if we wanted to. Maybe we'll put it like right here. Boom. And we can add in additional kind of elements to this as well as we progress, right? So building these things, and this is something that you probably, why would you ever see this in an art package, right? Now, obviously, you can also grab an image like this off of the internet and then um, probably take it into Photoshop and get rid of that white around the outside and use that as well. But this is always an avenue of the creation process. You can build all of this stuff right inside of Fantasy Grounds, and it just works. It just works. So very, very cool. Now let's go back in. I think that we can come down to our floor here, and I think I'm going to build, or actually, we can do a table kind of underneath this, but maybe we'll do it like a concrete kind of slab up here. So let's go here, and we'll grab this information that we got there, and let's go. We want our stroke to be on. We'll make this a little bit smaller, and then I'm also gonna change its color here. Let's go to like something like that. Hit OK. And I think that this is where we just place that. So we're going to do it on this layer. And I'm going to hold down Control to snap to the grid here. And then what I can do is I can come back in after the fact and let's grab this one and this one. And then again, we can kind of just pull this in here. Let's see, we can probably do it like here. I'm going to snap this to the grid and then move it, I think, so that we can get it pretty consistent. Yeah, now I can just double click it and we can kind of move it to maybe something like this. I think we'll go into our, I think that this is where these are. Yeah, so let's just remove these for right now. Oh, didn't want to do that, so let's hit Control Z because this is part of that. So it's just these ones that we want to remove. This one's angled a little bit funny, so I think, is it here? Yeah, we just want to move this one. Let's fix that. Perfect. Now we can come back in and do those in the appropriate spot underneath, right? And so we might even want to, at this stage, right, there might be more than one of these up here. So let's go back down into, I think it's, yeah, it's here. And maybe we'll do, and we can change its color, right? So maybe we'll make, there might be a couple of these. And now we can start to place some other things up here too, right? Like we might want to do, let's go all the way up here. We can type in something like cup. This is why I like to have like these kind of like cups that are like knocked over and whatnot. Oh yeah, we got to do like these kind of cups actually. These look like these kind of like plastic kind of cups. Right? We'll have some of these like on the floor and stuff. Yeah, very cool. Well, I think I want to go. Is it this one? No, it's this one. Yeah, here. Let's line these up a little bit better. Perfect. Yeah, I think those look really good. Now we can do like some speakers, for example. I'm only going to be running until 5 o'clock today. So in a couple of moments, I'm going to take a break, and then when we come back, we'll build some speakers. Um, but does anyone have any questions about any of that? Oh yeah, here Spencer has a question. I have to ask this every time I sleep because I forget. How can you lighten an asset, make it lighter shade color? So there's it's always the same keyboard commands, but when you do it, changes based off of the element, right? Like if you have a stamp, right? So let's say if we go over to the stamp, I can hold down R, G, or B, and so if I hold down B, it's going to add remove blue. If I hold down G, it's going to remove the green, and R is red. So to lighten an asset or to darken an asset, right, it's going to be the same thing. We're holding down all of those colors are going to darken that up. Now you can't make a stamped image any lighter than it actually is without using an effects layer. But if we do use a fill element, right, especially one of these like color ones, so if we switch over to a color fill, I'm just going to come up here. Uh, so if we do pull this out, right, I can do this after the fact, and we can make that all the way up to white. So even if I were to, let's switch over into here, and if I were to grab like this, I could drag this out, and then I could change this color. And now what I'm doing is I'm holding R, G, and B at the same time and using my mouse wheel to change that value. Now there's lots of different ways that you can change the value um, in addition to that. So let's go back over to like this plastic cup. If I drop this down, what I can actually do is I can create an effects layer if I have to make that lighter, and I can come into here and we can go to adjust colors. I'm going to enable a mask, and I'm just going to draw out real quick this image, and you can see I can brighten this image up. We can remove these bits, blur that out a little bit from the edges. I want to go a little bit on the inside because it's blurred. But here I can bring that all the way up to white. So there's lots of different ways, depending on what you're actually working on how to interact with that system. Hopefully that answers your question. Awesome. So I'm going to take a really quick break here, and then I will be right back. I'm just going to freshen up my beverages, and then we're going to build like some of these other elements, like some speakers and whatnot. And so as we kind of progress here, you can see we can pretty much build whatever we want to. It takes very little. Well, it just takes time. You just if you want to kind of go down those rabbit holes and whatnot, but it's super fun to do. Kind of coming up with a way that we did that. So you can see this is just with mostly fill elements and super cool, super easy to do. Great. So yeah, just give me like a couple of moments. I'll be right back and we'll continue down this avenue. All right, and we're back. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me, or for hanging out for a minute while I took a short break. We'll dive right back into this stuff and kind of further explore all of the amazing tools that we have inside of Fantasy Grounds. As we begin to build up and demonstrate the ability that you can really kind of create any sort of image that you want to inside of Fantasy Grounds, and really the sky's the limit. So anything that you need, anything that comes up when you're making your images or your maps, and I also always love to stress that it doesn't specifically have to be for maps. You can build your handouts and all of that stuff right inside of here. So lots of great and cool kind of stuff that you interact with here. So let's dive right in here. Go back into our campaign folder. Now we're going to make some speakers, and I have also reference kind of for my speakers. And what we can actually do, I was thinking about this as well while I was taking a short break, is that we can just kind of use this preview window as our aspect by which that we can kind of look at this. And one of the cool things about when we create our own images and whatnot is that and here, let me just pull up our image creation window here. This is what we just made and then exported it. So we can come in here and we can delete this now. We have that saved as its own particular image, as we have over here. Use that as our reference over there. And now we're going to build some speakers. And when we build this like speaker that we're going to actually use and kind of place around, we want something that we can place lots of different areas. And we also want something that we can manipulate, right? One of the things that you can kind of do, especially when you're stamping images around, is you can control the dimensions of that, right? Like you can squash it or you can expand it. You can kind of manipulate that image in lots of different ways. So you want to, unlike making something that's like completely like top down, I like to sometimes show a little bit of the front of it. And if you don't really necessarily have to make that image as distorted as you think that you would have to, because then you can use the built-in system to kind of further augment that. So this should be a pretty easy build for us. We're going to basically be doing exactly the same thing that we were doing before. We're going to be using just the paint tools, and we're going to use some different shapes and whatnot, and then we're going to use our gradient to kind of add some of that stuff. Like the soft shadows and highlights and whatnot to give our creation a little bit more shape. So let's dive right into this. So the first thing that we're going to do, and I'm also going to show you that you can use the painted elements and then adjust them in the Layers tab to kind of do a lot of that work for you. So like for example here, let me just show you this really quickly. Let's go in here and we're going to switch over. Let's add in an image fill here. And if we zoom out here a little bit, I'm going to I'm going to go to my circle, my ellipse tool, and let's make something like this, right? Well, actually, we'll make it pretty large, something like this big. Now, if I come over into the Layers tab here, I can adjust this, right? I can squash this, and we can change its size after the fact, and we can kind of make this element, right? So as we want the rounded speaker element to be more distorted like that, we can kind of build that speaker in a very flat way, and then we can make that adjustments here, right? And then we can any sort of like further adjustments, because we want to make sure that it kind of looks like there's the indent and then the bubble on the center of it, right? Because it's a diaphragm that's attached to like large magnets, and so you get kind of some ins and outs there, and we're going to kind of replicate that a little bit as well. So the first thing that we're going to do, though, I'm just going to delete this. We'll create a new painting layer. The first thing we're going to do is going to create our box here. And we're going to do that in a very similar way. Let's make this black at first. And I want, let's do rounded corners so that it's a little bit softer here. And we'll make this a little bit, again, we're going to make all of these things larger than we're actually going to be using. because shrinking something down always works a lot better than trying to make something larger. And building it at the size that we want to use it at, we're going to have a lot more or less rounded shapes because the way that the system works is it's actually using like a polygon kind of system. So the larger we kind of make it, the more rounded it's going to seem, right? The more subtle our gradients can be and so on. So the first thing I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to hold down Control, and we're going to make sure that we have the right tool selected. I always do that. And we'll make this like a rectangle. And if you notice in our image here, because of the way we want this to be, the back ones, these ones, we want to have smaller than these ones. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to move these into something like this. And we might even want to bring it up to something like that, right? So basically, we're just going to be creating this this kind of shape here. And then again, the front of it, we're going to be doing something similar. We want it to kind of, but less gradual. So we're going to be doing something like that. So again, we're going to switch back over to our element here, and I'm going to hold down Control again, and I'm just going to do something like this. And again, maybe we'll kind of pull that in right right. So the major thing that we want to do here, and here we're going to switch over to our edit fill, is let's make these a little bit, as you can see, now we've instantly kind of made this feel a little bit better here. And let's do that. But we want to make sure that one side of it is a little bit different color, because if we make them the same kind of colors, you can see that your eye is instantly going to kind of feel as though that that one side is in highlight and one is in dark, right, in shadow. And so we can kind of use that to our advantage and see that this works pretty well here. We might want to adjust some of these things and whatnot. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new painting layer because we're going to want to squash this a little bit. And again, we're going to go into our ellipse tool. And then I'm actually going to make this over here. And then we'll move it over when it's appropriate, right? So I'm going to hold down Control, Shift, and Alt, and I'm just going to drag out a circle, maybe something like this size. And then again, we're going to come in here and we can make this a little bit lighter, maybe something along these lines. We want to do something that we can kind of do the shadows with and all of that kind of stuff. And we're going to make these kind of circles, and we can do that a couple of different ways, right? We can do that with just by doing like shadows and highlights with painting out some of those different shapes and whatnot. But we can also do it. I think that we can do it with some gradient kind of fills here. So if we turn off, no, we want to keep our fill on. If we turn off our stroke, right, and we're going to try to maintain the same kind of size here. What I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to hold Control, Alt, and Shift, and we're going to just drag this out, something like that. And what we can actually do here is we can fade in, as you can see, we can fade in some of these elements, and we can also change these colors, right, to something like this. So we can kind of manipulate some of this stuff just with some of these fade elements, and you can kind of see how powerful this kind of stuff starts to become, right? So if we do something like this, I think what we want to do is make it a bit smaller. So I'm just gonna double click this and kind of move this out of the way, but go back into the ellipse tool again here, and I'm just gonna drag this out to maybe something like here, and then we're gonna fade this, maybe something like that, right? And some of these concentric kind of rings out here. We might even want to have made this a bit bigger. So maybe what we'll do is we'll come back in here. Let's turn our stroke back on, and we'll make one that's a bit bigger out like that. And we're going to want to make that a little bit lighter. I'm going to come in here and what I'm actually gonna, yeah, let's just do these ones again because we'll do some additional ones. Let's lower down our, we'll make some smaller like circles here. I think that this will work out pretty well because then we can delete some of the inside, I think. Yeah, we'll experiment here and see what we can kind of come up with, and maybe get some good new uses of. Yep, they do need to be squished because of the perspective, but we're actually going to do that in the layers tab, which is why we put them on a new layer. You'll kind of see how this is going to play out here in a minute, but I want to create it outside of the perspective and then squish it all together because the painting layers will then get squished based off of interacting with it on the layers side of things. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So let's lower this down and then I'm going to grab in here. I'm make sure I'm in my circle and maybe drag something out like here. And I think what we can do is do something like this, right? So I'm just going to grab this and move it over here. And if we come back into our circle over here, we can go to subtract and subtract out the middle. And here's the cool thing about this is that I can, if I wanted to, I can select these elements in here, right? So I could go around and select all this stuff. Well, if I didn't misclick here, if we select these things, do we have double lines here? Yeah, we do. So if you select this stuff, you can still move this around. So we could move where the hole actually is if we're able to select them all. But that'll work pretty well. And if we come over into here, if we see if we fade this, and then we can change it so that it's like this. And I think what we can do is kind of make that feeling of like concentric circles. And then we can turn off the stroke. And I think it can be a little bit off here. I think that'll be fine. And then come into the middle here. We want to make sure that we have normal mode. And I'm going to, nope, I wanted it to be normal mode. We can hit Control Z. And then this one, I'm just going to fade out. So something like this, right? And then when we come over into this, what we can actually do is squash this all down. But those fades seem to kind of go away with the squash. Let's see what happens when we come back in here. And maybe we can bring that fade back in a little bit. Let's see. It seems to, we might have to readjust that. We could probably just do that. We should probably just do that with like some painting, some elements, right? But here we can actually do is move this into place, kind of create this. Yeah, that should be okay. I think we'll do something like that. Let's see what we can do here. Let's grab this and kind of drop this over into here. Whoop, let's grab it, drop it into here. And we'll make this, let's lower down the alpha on that. And we can make it a bit darker. I'll make the alpha a little bit more. I think it will come in here. Let's do a little bit like right around here. Don't want to move that one. We want to move these ones. And then we'll do a little bit coming down this way. We want to do a little bit on these edges. Yeah, because it's going to be about this size, so that should work pretty well. And what we'll do now is go back into our fill element here, switch back over, drop this in here. And again, we're going to kind of draw this out. Let's make this a lot bigger. We'll do it like a nice little gradient, like something like this. And we'll lower down that alpha. And then we can do another one with a shadow on the other side. And let's do one more on the front here, or maybe two more. We'll see. And yeah, let's do one more. Yeah, I think that should work okay. And now what we can actually do is, and we could do this lots of different ways, but now let's export that and make sure we do a PNG. We'll call that speaker. And now we refresh this. And this is going to be all listed alphabetically. So here it is. Now we can close that down, come back into here. Let's go into maybe something like this layer, especially if we're going to put some up on the. And so this is what I was saying before, is like from here, right? We have our width and our height. So if we close our height down, let's say you can see that we can kind of squash this image to make it seem more right? Like if we were going to do ones like up on the walls or whatnot, we can kind of do that. But I think that this is going to work okay for us. We can kind of just like place these maybe around up here. I'm going to make them a little bit darker. Yeah. So let's place some of these around. We can maybe make them a little bit bigger. I think we'll do something like this. Oh yeah, we have some shadow there as well. So we might want to make them brighter. So yeah, because we're going to take into account the shadows. Let's make them something like this. Oh, whoops, we want to make sure that their highlights are going in the right direction, so we're going to flip that. Maybe like this. Yeah, and see that that looks like a pretty good reasonable facsimile of what we're trying to create here. Now we can add in, we could do like some different kind of like grungy kind of stuff on top of them. Maybe there's like some sort of textural difference or whatnot. Great, now let's go back in and we can start to add in some of this other stuff here. I'm going to do some additional kind of shadows here. So what we have all of this stuff there. We have our new DJ stuff there, and then this stuff. So let's go on to the stage, and I'm going to do RGB, make this darker, and then we're going to lower down that opacity. I'm going to make this a bit oblong, not that far. Let's do like 5. And I'm just going to do a little bit of shadow like coming out from underneath here a little bit. And up on this layer, I'm going to do some shadows from, let's lower down the opacity a bit more. Some little cast shadows from these guys. Make them feel as though they're a little bit more a part of the world here. We got our these are like animated elements in the middle. Probably do a little bit more in these corners. We should do some like from these cups and whatnot. We've got to make sure that we're on the right layer here. Does that? I wonder if that does. Yeah, it does. It paints even with it not. All right, now let's make this a bit oblong. That's too far. We can do some of this stuff. I feel like this should have like wires all over the place up there and stuff. Now let's turn our lights back on. And we can add in, you see we have like some nice little colored elements up here for this stuff. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. And it looks as though this layer, not exactly sure what's going on with it. Looks like some of that animated stuff kind of went. But maybe if we close it down and reopen it. Yeah, there it is. Got all of these like lighting effects and whatnot, and all kinds of cool stuff in there. Yeah, it really starts to kind of feel like the place that it's supposed to be, right? Like you get that a lot of that um, I guess the atmosphere, the ambience of the area comes a lot from like these lighting elements, right? Like these darker, kind of grittier places. Yeah, super cool. So now what we can do is we can start to add in. This is where I would start to do all the incidental kind of stuff. We can do like bottles and drinks and whatnots, kind of laying around. Maybe some stuff on the ground, um, bits of debris or whatnot. Um, Pretty much anything that you think might be. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool myself. I think it's a very successful kind of creation of that industrial kind of ravey nightclub, right? Yeah, so let's add in some additional kind of elements here. We got about half an hour left today, so we can start to add in some additional stuff. And if you guys have any suggestions, throw it at me. Even if it's something that we might not necessarily have, we can create it like we did with the graffiti, like we did with like the tabletop stuff, like all the other stuff. I think what I want to do here though is let's go to like a no, that's barbed wire, something like this, I think, and we'll paint out some like wires and stuff up here. I think we'll do it on this layer here. And then we have like groupings of wires and whatnot. So what I think what we can actually do here is kind of just want to do some that look like they're kind of like hang over the edge here a little bit. I think how we can do it is maybe do something like that. Yeah, and we can do some smaller ones. And then on the stage itself, we can kind of do some stuff like this. And this is what's so good about it is we can just come back in and we can kind of connect some of this stuff. Move this stuff around and do all of the fun little interactions that we have here. Yeah. All right. Let's. Oh, we might even want to do some wires with the speakers, or maybe not. Depends on how we kind of go with that. But let's go down. I think, yeah, on the stage level, and or maybe even like this level, we can start to add in some additional kind of stuff. What I'd kind of also like to do is let's go in on this level, and let's go into the winter art pack. I like to use the a lot of the winter effects to kind of create a lot of the like stains and whatnot because we have a lot of control over it. I think I'll grab this one and we can lower down that opacity. We might even want to, kind of do some of this stuff around. And if we, when I'm doing this stuff as well, it's really good to kind of turn off the lights so that you have a little bit better of a understanding. We have like these it's cool like stuff that's kind of happening here in the background as well. So let's go back over in here. I think we'll do some different colors as well. So let's maybe make it a little bit um, like this kind of like grungy green and whatnot. And I'll do some on the floor. We might even want to do some that are like dark red or something. People have spilt stuff and things have happened. Kind of like poking out from underneath there. And you can see that this really adds in a lot of it kind of breaks up the elements so that it doesn't seem so contrived, you know? And then up here, we might want to do it. Let's do, yeah, maybe something like this. And we can come over here and maybe I think we can do some on top of this one. Let's make it a little bit darker. And a little bit. So boom. Yeah, it just adds a little bit of inconsistency across it. Makes it feel a little bit more lived in and whatnot. Awesome. And now what we can actually do is start to build out. Let's do some of that other stuff. So let's look up like a bottle. And we can start to place some of these things, or maybe even like a tray first. We might want to put some stuff down. So we have some of these kinds of things, right? So, and we'll make them like an appropriate size. Might have some stacked up. Now let's look at we can look up like bottle, and we can grab some of this kind of stuff. Maybe we'll do like some different colored ones. Who knows what might be inside? And we have some like collections of them. Maybe do some that are like knocked over. And then we could do like little liquid spills and whatnot. We even have like broken glass and whatnot. We could place around if we needed to. I think we'll stick with like these cups. I think that these are going to work really good in here. I think we'll move this one over a little bit. Let's do something like that and place one like there. And then we can do some of these ones too, especially like over here. And some that are like knocked over. That one looks like it's a little bit too big. So let's remove it. We can put it back a little bit smaller. And I feel like we would have some maybe like on the floor too. We might even do, yeah, I think we have some like this kind of stuff, like, or papers and whatnot. We might want to do like trash. And we can kind of drop some of this stuff around. Again, it makes it feel a little bit more lived in, and it's like a used space. I feel like it would all collect around like this kind of stuff, right? Yeah, so now I'm going to come back into this layer and we'll add this in. Um, so yeah, we'll finish up this stuff and then we'll call it good for today. And we can switch back over, turn our lights back on. Very cool. All right, you guys have any questions about any of that? Or is there anything that you need further explanation on? Or you guys have any questions on like the export system or how we can build our own little elements like this? All right, well, if there's no other questions, I think we'll call it here for today. So make sure that we'll be back next week. I stream almost every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, and then we run to like 5 or 6, depending on the day. But we'll be going through all of this stuff, and I should be having some new images that I'll be putting together for next month's art package, and we'll be demonstrating some of that stuff possibly. Yeah, you bet. No problem. Thanks everyone for hanging out with me today. I hope you guys all have a great week. Yeah, I just got here. It's only been 2 hours. Yeah, no problem at all. All right, guys. We'll have a great week. We'll see you all next time. Take care, everybody.